Hi, everybody. My name's Dixon,
I'm Jose.
and welcome to episode 9 of Southwest Side Stories. So, we're doing something a little different today. We had a couple of interviews in the works. Those interviews are still in the works, but they have not been completed yet. So, we aren't going to have a guest for you this week. But we thought that what we do is just introduce ourselves because we sort of kicked this project off and didn't really tell people who we were, did we?
Yeah, we're a little. We had a lot of ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's fine. So no time like the present. Why don't we start just by introducing ourselves? Jose, do you want to, tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and sort of how you came to the Southwest Side in general?
sure. So my name, I'm using my middle name these days. So it's Alberto Requena. Um, I was born in Monterrey, Mexico. I came to Chicago when I was like 2 years old. Um, Grew up in the neighborhood of Little Village, which is a bit southwest-ish, but central to the city. Um, Moved around the city a little bit with my family, changed schools a couple times, but ultimately ended up around like 48th and Cicero, 40 something Cicero. And that's been home since like the mid 2000s. But the Pulaski Orange line is what I always took to go to high school. I would take the Pulaski bus from Little Village down to the Pulaski Orange line, to go to Whitney Young, go Dolphins. Um, I went to UIC for my undergrad and graduate studies, and I'm a special education classroom assistant in Chicago Public Schools. So, I think, well, we've already interviewed a coworker of mine at Richard Edwards Elementary. So
Yeah.
uh, that's me.
All right. Well, so my name is Dixon. I grew up on the northwest side of the city, just a little bit north of Logan Square. Um, and yeah, I had sort of a very similar educational experience to you. I took the Blue Line to Whitney Young. So you took the train that goes to one airport, and I took the train that goes to the other airport, and we met in the middle. And then I went to UIC for a couple years before getting a film and video degree at Columbia. Um, and then when it was time to get an apartment, I moved to the Southwest Side, started living in McKinley Park for a few years. And then my wife Jamie and I lived there for a few years before we bought our house in Archer Heights in 2010. So we've been here almost 12 years now because we bought at the beginning of 2010. And yeah, I see a lot of kind of similarities in terms of um, neighborhood feel, a lot of single family homes, a lot of bungalows between where I grew up, which looks very different today than it did in the 80s and 90s, and the southwest side of the city today. So um, yeah, and then I work at a place called Physicians for a National Health program that advocates for single payer Medicare for all. So basically, health insurance and good health insurance for everybody, which is a lot different from what we have today. And this is a group of about 20,000 doctors across the country, 25,000 doctors coming up on it across the country who are pushing for this. So yeah, that is me in a nutshell.
Speaking of airports, I live right by Midway Airport, and just don't want noise. We don't get to sue the city because we live in the city, unlike people around O'Hare. But
Yeah,
it's a whole nother story.
yeah. I mean, that's funny because for like, I don't know, a couple of months when we moved in, I noticed the airplanes, and now I don't notice them at all. And people come to visit us and they say, "Oh, you can really hear the airplanes." And I say, "Well, you can? I can."
My path into organizing, I, really kind of went back to like the Affordable Health Care Act. So like, just that you work in healthcare, thank you for that. Like I had a uh, precondition back when that was a thing. you
Hmm.
know, and that fight was like the big progressive fight. But since then, like I've I've dabbled in a lot of different areas in housing and labor and electoral politics. I've been working for Chicago Public Schools for about 6 years, and it really feels like, we were speaking to this a little before. If we don't push to use our public resources to their most optimal and their most accountable to the public, then they're going to get purposely deteriorated and sold off. So, like right now, we're surrounded by a lot of great charter schools that parents like love, and they do great work there. We have some public schools that have more resources than most in some places, and some that don't. And just trying to rationalize that right now is where I'm at.
Yeah, I hear that. I think one of the things that really struck me when I moved to the neighborhood, because Jamie and I didn't have any children at that point. We have a daughter now, but we were kind of looking at schools. We were married at the time, thinking about kids. Um, and you know, we moved into Archer Heights, we saw that I think there were like 6 elementary schools in the neighborhood, 5 or 6. So there's Edwards, there's the Academy for Global Citizenship, which is a charter school a little bit closer to Cicero, that has 2 campuses. Um, there was at the time the Uno School, now the Acero School, on 47th Street, that I believe has 2 separate elementary schools within it, and there were 2 parochial schools in the neighborhood as well. So, like, that's a lot of, and as parents, or as people, thinking about children in the future, we were, sort of excited about that because, oh, look, there's a lot of different choices, but definitely it's important to be investing in schools as kind of like neighborhood anchors, and I'm happy to see that there is the new building at Edwards, and that Edwards continues to be invested in. I was really taken by the interview that I did with your coworker, with Mr. Hack, a few episodes ago, where he was saying, yeah, Edwards is continually in the top 2 or 3, if not the top school in terms of enrollment, elementary schools in the city, and all the schools are in the Southwest side. So obviously, there's a lot of young people, there's a lot of kids, and with that should rightfully come, the necessary investment to make sure that the schools are doing what they need to do.
I come from a family of educators and CPS. To be honest, like my both my parents worked for CPS, and I had some aunts that worked for CPS. My eldest aunt, I never got to meet her. She passed away before I was born, but she was an activist and educator in CPS and in Chicago during the '70s. During the during there's a lot of movements going on. She unfortunately passed away in a fire. It was a little bit more common in the early '80s in Chicago at the time. But she was respected enough in the neighborhood that through movement work and through working with the local units of government, there's an elementary school named after her, Maria Salcedo Elementary, and that had kind of a weird impact on me growing up. So my undergrad degree was in English creative writing. I thought I was going to write a novel and make a living off of that. That was dumb. But
You can
I
still write a novel.
someday,
Yeah,
someday. Well, it's not what I'm going to make a living off of, but I'll
right.
I'll, I'll, write, I'll turn one out, maybe,
I'll,
hopefully.
I'll read it.
Thanks. um, I no, I traveled in South Korea as an educator. They were I had my undergrad degree, and that's all that they were really requiring, to like fly you out there and give you a place to live. So it was a nice gig. I got to learn a lot more about the world and about education, about how education in Korea was done. And I just, it was, you're immersed in the world of education in South Korea. It's a national building effort. almost, it has its problems. There's the teen suicide rate there is extremely high, while they don't have the same problems that we have here in Chicago with guns and drugs and a lot of other issues. Though they're not, totally absent in Korea, it's just not, the same issues that we're fighting. But that kind of had me more thinking about like municipal policy. So when I came back from teaching in Korea, I got into urban planning and policy for my graduate degree. And I was really focused on like environmental planning. I was going to join the Peace Corps and go to Peru. Unfortunately, because of my health, I was not cleared to go to Peru. So I took up a job in CPS. It seemed like a thing to do at the time, but that was back in 2016, and like a lot of plans changed, and I was really concerned about where, um, you know, uh, Chicago and then the world could head. So I got more involved in electoral and local organizing while
Yeah.
working at CPS. So it's been a great place to grow and work at. I feel like it's a job that services the public, and I might stick it out with education for the long term. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's funny. It's interesting because there have obviously been a lot of social and political developments on the national stage and on the worldwide stage. Um, we don't necessarily need to name names since 2016. Um, that have a lot of people concerned, and I think paradoxically, it's like I know a lot of people, Jamie included, myself included, a lot of people in the neighborhood who they see things sort of on the national or global scale that seem troubling but also out of reach, and then a reaction to that is to kind of like dig in and do a lot of local organizing, to do as much as you can in your corner of the world, to try to improve things, to try to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks, to try to make sure that the big things that are happening outside of you know your purview, aren't hurting people too much, at least to the extent that you can. So, and I know people are doing that all over the country and all over the world, but I think that's a big sort of inspiration for a lot of people that I see getting involved with the collective, and it's an inspiration for me too, as far as like, okay, well, here's something tangible that you can do, so work on that. If you could like wave a magic wand and have anything materialize on the Southwest side, physical or otherwise, what would you do? What's the big dream that you'd like to see?
I'm currently taking CBD and medical cannabis classes at Olive-Harvey, and it's an industry that's kind of far along, but not far along enough. One of the things I really would like to do is bring back manufacturing jobs to Chicago, but in a environmentally sustainable way. We could have urban gardening with hemp and bring that manufacturing into all kinds of things into like a center, like right behind like the world's famous chocolate. There's a lot of abandoned factory space, because I see that right now what we're doing is we're turning out a jobs program for socially conservatively, but law-abiding, like truck drivers and police drivers, military-minded civic workers. That's kind of like nursing is Southwest Side vibe. And to this point, like we've had a few episodes about the trucking logistics hub. A lot of people see the environmental damage that it would do, but they also see and envision, the longevity of well-secure jobs for kids that just get by and I just want to have a decent life. And if you can transfer that to an environmentally sustainable job where you can just walk to your job and not be polluting the air, you don't have to change a whole lot more. You can bring another community college here to train these kids, and if they want to jump to university and go out of state, more power to them. But that vibe that I see is really treasured here in the Southwest side of everything you need is right here. You don't have to go too far. Could be revamped with an environmental sustainable way. We were able to figure out this hemp manufacturing business.
If I could kind of wave a magic wand, what I'd really like to see is, and this is sort of selfish because it's my own, it's like what I see on a day to day basis. But there's a big lot at the near the corner of Archer and Pulaski, near the Pulaski Orange Line stop, where the Miami Bowl
Yeah.
used to be back in the day, and it hasn't been there for I think more than 15 years at this point. I think it was torn down in 2006, um, and it had been shut for a few years before that. But regardless, it's been empty for a very long time, and so it is kind of discouraging for me when I am riding the Orange Line. Going into work, I see like, okay, so there's a big facility being built, um, right next to the Kedzie Orange Line stop. I believe that I'm not totally sure. I believe that is an Amazon facility. So, that's not, there's, that's a mixed blessing to say the least. But you see the investment, you see something being built on what was, vacant property before. And then you go to the Western Orange Line stop immediately next to it, and you see the new Park District headquarters being built on what was a very large vacant lot. And that seems, like a really positive development. So there are like these big, acreages of vacant land near the two Orange Line stops immediately next to Pulaski, that are being developed. And then there's this, just big kind of blank canvas. And obviously, I think, I'd want to be careful about what was built there. I wouldn't want something detrimental to be built there, obviously. But this is a huge intersection of two major streets, Pulaski and Archer. There's a high school, Curie High School is right across the street. There's a train station right next door. That's one of the busier stations on the Orange Line. I think it's second only to Midway in terms of daily riders. And if you see the line of people, who are lining up to take the bus at rush hour, you can believe that. But building something there and having it really be a positive anchor for the community, something like a community center, for example, I think would be great, something publicly minded. I've always had in the back of my mind that I don't know why, even just on a commercial level, someone wouldn't build a movie theater there. It's like,
Yeah.
you have a high school right across the street, and you're telling me that kids from Curie aren't gonna just go see movies after school. And
Mm.
you have a train station right there, and you know, um, there's not really a movie theater in anywhere in the vicinity. There's one at Fort City, and that's the closest one. Um, and then you kind of, I think, have to go to the South Loop in
Yeah,
order to have a
this
movie theater.
but then you go into the suburbs there.
Right. So yeah, so there's a few options if you're driving, but for people
Right.
who live in the neighborhood. And again, that's not like I'm saying we should build a movie theater, but there's so many options that of things that could go there that could be positive for the community. But right now, it's just empty. And you know, our friend who owns Pete's Fresh Market has the land. It's been holding on to that for a while,
Yeah.
and so hopefully, something can get built on there. Anything else in terms of, you know, things you'd like to see on the Southwest side, um, hopes for our city, our neighborhood, our
You
world?
know, uh, so many, but one that I'll sign off with is just I'm really hoping more. Right now, there's four public schools. They're going to be vaccination sites for the students of Chicago. That's like 330K public school students. We're not talking about charter school students and like religious school students, which I went to Catholic school between second and sixth grade. Like it's there's a lot. Like just CPS. There's 330K students. They're going to have
Mhm.
one day next week, and there's 4 schools. So I would like to see way more schools. All of them would be good. At least mine would be a start to be vaccination sites for anyone that is ready to be vaccinated right
I know when it comes to the health of people's children that they're especially vigilant, and rightfully so. But it took almost a year after the vaccine was approved for adults for it to be approved for children. So it seems to me as a parent that they've taken uh, the time and precaution necessary, and the trials have been rigorous enough to you know ensure that it's safe and that it's going to be effective for kids. And I'm eager to have my daughter vaccinated. She'll be 5 in a couple of weeks, so she'll be eligible in a couple of weeks. And I'm I'm excited for that day because I feel like it's an additional level of protection for her classmates at school, and for everyone in the community. So uh, if we all do this together, we can put COVID a little bit more meaningfully behind us, and you know, and save some lives, and help people be healthier in the process. So
now. Yeah, word to that.
yeah,
You know, and if people were getting it at their local schools, surrounded by their community members, they'd have a lot less apprehensions, I think, over time if you work with them.